Hi everyone, over to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Ed, and good afternoon, good morning for all those attendees, and welcome to our panel session on automation, machine learning, and AI. Is your DAM ready? I've got with me today three guests: Chris Lang, who's the DAM librarian at the University of New South Wales; Damien Calvert, who's the IT manager at the Australian Ballet; and Conrad Henson, who's the Senior Product Marketing Manager at OpenText, to join me in this discussion. Each of the members of this panel have, through their interactions with various DAM platforms, gained some experience with the functions and enhancements that AI provides. But of course, AI and its subfield of machine learning and its overarching term, comes in many forms to suit many different purposes. From a DAM perspective, we predominantly talk about AI tagging use cases, whilst obviously things like generative AIs like ChatGPT, diffusion AI, mid-journey scenarios, not typically arrived on the DAM landscape. Sure that it will arrive at some point in the near future. And how we deal with those digital assets that are created from generative, well, that's probably might fall into our conversation a little bit, but that's very much a stewardship. So for the session today, we're going to explore the realities of what AI has really had to offer in terms of this context, observations on the gaps and what this provides for the use of DAM, and where we foresee or hope the technology can assist us further in the search and speed up the findability of assets for users, but also assist in the time-consuming and laborious DAM administration functions. So, as I said, I'm going to introduce each one of you and ask you to just make your introductions individually, if you wouldn't mind. Chris, can you say hello and introduce yourself in a couple of minutes, please?
Sure. I'm Chris Lang. I'm the DAM librarian at UNSW in Sydney. I look after a DAM system with about 700 odd users. Probably about a quarter of those are responsible for uploading assets into the DAM. Nearly 100,000 assets at this stage. So there is some automation and AI involved during that ingestion process of assets into the system. And some automation as well when those images and assets are used on web pages. But I can see a lot of potential for growth. One of the things which I personally want to know about from other people is preparing those images or preparing your library for future introductions of AI. So how can people best be prepared for whatever's going to happen in the future? Because we're really at the early stages here of how that's going to affect people.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Chris. Damien, over to you.
Hi, so I'm Damien Calvert. I'm the IT manager here at the Australian Ballet. So we are 3 years into our DAM journey, so probably a lot younger in the DAM space than Chris at University of New South Wales. We are kind of putting a DAM in to preserve our visual history, which we've got a very rich visual history as a performing arts company. We're going through a process of assessing about 1 million assets across audio, video, still assets, music scores, lots of things like that. And we're about a quarter of the way into that journey. So we've got about 160,000 assets in our DAM system at the moment, but potentially a lot more assets to come. And we have a proof of concept AI project underway, which I'm sure I'll talk more about during this. And that's really just to help us with the sheer quantity of assets that we're dealing with, or that we would like to deal with, and to kind of enrich the data in those and make them a lot more useful, and help us understand our 60 years of history as a company, which this year is our 60th anniversary. So it's an important step towards preserving our past and preparing us for the future.
Very good. Excellent. And Conrad, thanks for joining us. Can you give us a
hi, Andrew.
Minutes
Thank you.
Introduction?
So I'm Conrad Henson. I'm from OpenText, the global leader in information management, and also one of the longest lived vendors in the DAM market. I've worked in the DAM field since 2011, when I was working in multi-channel operations at Marks & Spencer, the UK retailer. I've since worked on 3 DAM projects, large DAM projects on the customer side, up to 3.5 million assets, one of them. As a product owner and more late a DAM consultant. 3.5 years ago now, I joined OpenText digital experience product marketing team. I'm responsible for digital asset management and specifically our media management product. My role is to advocate for the customer in the product strategy and to monitor industry trends, like what this conference is about, to help with long-term planning. I've just returned home to New Zealand after nearly 20 years living and working in London to be faced with the wettest summer in Auckland's history. So great welcome home for me.
It's looked terrible, and I'm glad to see that you're dry today.
Thank you. Yeah. You can't see my feet.
It's been a little wet here in Sydney as well, although not to the same extent that we've witnessed on the TV pictures. Well, look, it's a pleasure having you all together today, and I do appreciate you spending the time. But you know, AI is almost on the conversation of everyone's lips. You know, technology has penetrated our daily lives on lots of different levels, but very specifically, you know, there has been some, you know, amazing advancements in AI and ML for dams, and I'm pretty much most dam platforms have some sort of automated tagging function to some degree, but certainly from what I've seen, all of those systems rely on some sort of third-party microservice. They don't natively have that technology inbuilt. They're using, you know, an Amazon or an AWS function or a Google function or a combination of multiple, depending on what they are. They're not always 100% accurate in terms of, and I guess the reality is, what's your experience, good or bad, with the results that you've seen? Maybe start with Chris.
Yeah. So we've got automatic tagging as part of the ingestion, which is inbuilt into the system out of the box. And so that kind of complements the manual tagging and description and adding of titles and things like that. So it is about as smart as an AI can be-ish. It detects people, which is great. It detects happy people. It knows what a building is. It gets a little bit confused as to whether someone's a child or an adult. Anyone wearing a shirt is a businessman. Any fancy looking building is a palace. So, but it does pick up, you know, those basic kind of things, you know, people, crowds, happy people, youth, which is important for our user base. It would be, I can see going forwards, it'd be good to see it learn from the manual tags and extrapolate from those. At the moment, we do rely a lot on manual tagging, which is where training is very, very important. So to familiarize viewers and downloaders with, you know,
and manual tagging is specifically describing to the organization's metadata structure, right? It's applying something that's specific to the organization, rather than what these AI do, as you said, is, you know, businessman, right, building, palace.
Yeah, exactly. And so we do have a vocabulary built of tags, which is specific to the organization and also part of the IPTC framework. So that's kind of hierarchical. So we can say, you know, this is associated with particular schools or faculties or divisions. And it gets a bit complex because we do have all the faculties and divisions using our DAM at the moment, along with a bunch of research centres as well. Luckily, it is just staff using it at the moment, not students and the wider public. But yeah, the smart tagging is lower on the search hierarchy as well. So things which have been manually tagged with certain terms will appear higher on the search results than ones which the AI.
So you've changed the relevance of the search to say we trust this metadata more than we trust this metadata.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There is a bit of automation as well. When an image is used on the website, we get an automatic reference link to that website so we can see where it's been used or it's been added to a collection, which kind of helps avoid, you know, overexposing some images. So yeah, it is it is helpful for our users. One part of the training is that I do reiterate to the users, this is what the smart tags mean. You know, it is possible that you will get false positives using these results.
Yeah.
But also here is the importance of adding these manual tags. Even if we end up not going down the AI route, we still have this, you know, these firm tags in place. But if we do end up going down the AI route, it's got something to learn from. So it can look at images which have been manually tagged with, you know, certain building or faculty or student type and extrapolate from that. So yeah, that's kind of part of my wish list, future thinking mindset.
Conrad, from a technology point of view, do you see like, are all vendors typically using the similar sort of, you know, people faces kind of tagging technology? You know, are there ones that are, as Chris said, if I've manually tagged something with something that I know has put effort and learning into providing that knowledge transfer into the system, you know, is it typical that those systems can pick up and learn on that, or is that where we're going to training models and implementing your own modeling system?
Yeah, the system learning from your tags is, you know, really definition of custom training. I mean, it doesn't mean going into something that's utterly unique to your organization. Most of the big providers do have a custom training option, so where you can go up to kind of a higher tier of their AI service rather than just the generic tagging, which frankly I've really haven't found many customers that have managed to operationalize to get real value out of generic metadata management. So being able to feed back into the service, train a custom library using the basis of the generic, the kind of global model, and then using your information to improve that. That is really custom library training. Most providers do offer that as an option, but it's usually a higher tier. It's something, you know, basic AI tagging is actually really cheap these days. It's really cheap. Going into custom training is where the providers are making their money.
It sort of ticks the boxes on tender responses and other things to say we have AI tick, right? You know, but what's the value out of AI? And as you say, operationally turning that into some value.
And there is massive difference between providers, huge difference between AI providers. So I'm, you know, we don't offer, OpenText doesn't offer like an out of the box AI service that you're locked to. You know, so we've always got the ability to change to a different provider, whether it be, you know, one of the big guys or whether it's a boutique model. I think that it's really important that you have the ability to integrate with, like, even a custom boutique provider. Say you're looking to identify individual car models. Well, you don't get car models from you get car makes probably, but getting down to model and year, you're talking boutique or you're talking custom. You've got to be able to find the right provider for your use case, and therefore the flexibility to integrate with different providers, I think, is vital.
Yeah, Damien, you mentioned that you were going down the path of, obviously your content is I'm sure every image has dancer and other obvious things that are within the image, which really don't help because you've got, you know, your search results would be. Well, what have you found from what comes out of the box versus what you need?
Yeah, look, it's so out of the box, the content, you know, the suggestions we're getting out of the AI out of the box is probably not super helpful for the business initially. I mean, I guess beyond, you know, identifying color shades and other bits and pieces like that, again, I think we're going to have to get the full benefit, we're going to have to teach a machine what dance is and what dance looks like, and you know, what our industry specific bits and pieces look like, because out of the box everything is generically two people standing in a group, or occasionally someone dancing or someone doing a sport or that kind of thing, which is the machine's not doing a very good job at really getting more granular than that. So I guess our first step with our proof of concept that we've got going at the moment is really just about identifying people mainly because we don't have the time and resources to historically go back through such a huge quantity of assets and identify people. But beyond that, we want to start exploring things like actually identifying characters, identifying costumes, identifying sets, because again, we've probably got historic repositories that we actually we may not know the show that these photos are from, or we may not know the costumes that they're from and that kind of stuff. Or likewise, our teams want to say, great, we need some photos of a certain character from a certain show because we're doing something. So it's less about finding a person playing that role or knowing that a certain person played that role to go and find that asset. If we can actually go, hey, show us all the Romeos or all the Juliets or all the white swans or the black swans, that's great. But we're going to have to teach a machine what that looks like. Or again, show us a photo of a dancer on point or doing a pirouette again. So we're going to have to teach a machine what on point is or what a pirouette is. So that's definitely, when we start exploring that, that's definitely going to be going down the path of some custom training models, I think, for that kind of stuff.
Great. Yeah, it's not, it's not as easy as they say on the box. Yeah, certainly that's been my experience as well. So just wanted to sort of pivot a little bit in terms of the conversation. I mean, DAMs are pretty much a standard expected toolkit now. It's not like it's a nice to have anymore. Most organizations have a DAM. Some of them support, general functions within an organization in terms of storing content and distributing that. Some of them are dealing with marketing. In case of yourselves with university and ballet, you've got collections and specific information. It's very specific. But I guess that sort of ties to what Damien was saying, is that, to get all this, you're a quarter of your way through, you've got to get all this content in. This digital content is just growing. We've got things like, we've got, what's traditionally a digital asset is a scan of a painting or a picture of an object, or that's our digital asset of an object from a museum and collections point of view, right? Or a set, or a costume, or wherever it might be, right? But now we've got digital surrogates, which is we want to teach someone about this thing, so we've got a 3D render of this object that is actually now a surrogate of that object. And then we've got all these digitally born native kind of pieces of content that aren't just coming out of AI, but people are creating them, and that's their name. So I guess going back to what is a digital asset, and given if you take into those things into consideration the exponential growth of the number of assets, is AI really something that can assist us with the growth of the ingestion of those assets, or is this we're still back to square one and very early baby steps in terms of being able to trust that AI is going to be able to help increase that growth and that ability to ingest and control those assets with our DAM platforms? Damien, do you want to go with that first?
Yeah, look, for us, I think AI could be a great partner in helping speed of ingestion and tagging. I guess, yeah, maybe it's going to get to the point where you can trust it fully, but for us, where we know, we might be ingesting 200 or 300 photos from a photo shoot. If we can have the AI automatically identifying, where they were taken, who's in the photos, and doing all that tagging work for us, then that's a significant workflow time saver for us. And even if it's just making the suggestions, we've got a QA process past there, then I think that is a win, because not as if we've got a photo shoot of 300 photos of a single person. We've got a photo shoot of 300 photos of potentially 80 different people. I think also when we're starting to talk about other content, past and present, that's been generated for us, we're hoping the AI can help us to join the dots between different disparate pieces of content and bring them together and make some informed suggestions or decisions based on that content. So for us, we not only have the visual or the audio visual assets, we've also got casting information, cast lists, programs, and that kind of information. So it would be great to have AI help us join the dots and go, well, actually, these photos, because we know these photos were from this time period, and we know these are the people that were performing in that time period, then, you know, that's helpful for you to understand that these photos are probably of these people, or probably at this venue, or doing this production, right? And so it's getting information from a document data type and associating with the visual medium. So yeah, I think
so
that's
supporting data to enrich the decision-making process.
Correct. I think that's for us. I think that's where we see it kind of helping us deal with this ever-increasing amount of content that's coming from all different types.
What's your view, Chris?
Yeah, I would support a similar kind of thing. I think there's always got to be a person in between the machine and the end result to confirm its suggestions. I think so. We've got a fairly large campus, and we've got a few other locations off the main campus. It'd be good for the system to be able to, or the AI system to be able to say these images were taken, you know, during a certain period of time in a certain building. Therefore, they're likely to be associated with certain schools or faculties or events. But to have that automatically ingested would be, I think, a bit too much of a leap. I mean, similar, Damien, if it started saying this is definitively this person, you would still want to have some kind of error checking there to make sure that it is actually that person or not. So I think, I mean, until maybe 10, 20 years, things might change in between now and then. But I mean, it would be great to help to enrich the the manual tagging of assets with AI. I mean, even the basic stuff that we've got at the moment does help to enrich those search terms. So it can think of other terms that people don't necessarily come to mind with when they're uploading an asset. And for the generation of images as well, we do have a demand for particularly newsrooms and research-based articles and things like that, for people to say, I just need an image of, an atom spinning around, and sometimes they go off to a stock image site. But if they could just generate one themselves through AI and just say, like, I need a picture of an atom spinning around laid over the campus, or using a particular piece of instrument, and it can just create one, then that would take a lot of the workload off the photographers or the graphic design team, and just kind of help that workflow process. So.
And then should it be ingested back into the DAM to say what it is? I mean, or should it just leave?
Yeah, I would say so, because that can potentially be used again. And I think that it would be interesting to see where the ownership of that image lies, whether it's with Midjourney or whoever it is, or whether it was created in conjunction with this person who put in those prompts into the system, or combination of the two. I don't really know what the answer to that is yet. But I mean, at the moment, I can think it being similar to when a stock image is uploaded into the DAM. We tend to use free images, but we credit Unsplash or whoever it is who we source that image from.
Might be also crediting the person who's training the engine.
Yeah, exactly.
The person who. The fact of the matter is, someone's training might be better than someone else's training, and you might prefer one over the other. It's an interesting one. What do you see sort of globally? In terms of what are businesses thinking of, Conrad? Are they thinking that dams are going to magically support this amazing process and solve a problem of growth of these digital assets themselves? Or are they still realizing that, I mean, a dam is supposed to be a source of truth, right? So it's got to have some you would expect it. You don't go to a library and ask a librarian about information that you're researching on without trusting the fact that they've been, the library has the content you want for a start, and that the librarian knows where to point you in the right direction and get the right book for you. So if you suddenly start throwing books on different shelves and randomly creating things out of nowhere, and it all becomes chaos, then is that going to give us what we know? But I'm interested to know from a demand point of view, from an globally and your involvement, is there an expectation that we can just shove as much as we want and then the dam's going to automatically do it?
Yeah, you've used the word I was about to say, was automagic. There's for people that aren't so close to it, I think there's a massive expectation that with AI and wonderful search tools and various other, cloud and big data, that there's going to be some way of just making everything, instant. But whenever we dig under, when say a bunch of users are saying, I can't find anything in the DAM, they're not saying that they haven't got enough search results. They're actually saying they've got too much. And we've got to go beyond just tagging, frankly, which will increase the discoverability of all of those assets. But we've got to get a lot smarter about relevancy. Now that involves both the user being more specific in what they want, and also the DAM system understanding more about that user. We've got these fantastic recommendation engines and, Google search and things like that, that's understanding, search after search after search and narrowing that down, and understanding through, user websites that understand through users' previous behavior what they're interested in. I think we need to get more of that personalization in the DAM to be able to make sure that the results presented are actually much more relevant. So increasing the discoverability of all assets, that's what people think is going to solve the problem. It isn't. It's understanding what's going to be relevant to that user in that instance. We've got to think about the users more as customers on a shopping site and present them with the top result that we think they need based on everything else we know about them. And I think that's where AI's got to go, in terms of understanding customer journey, user journey, to get the right result, rather than just 20 times the content that's available to a particular user, because it just slows them down. It doesn't speed them up.
Interesting. Okay. I guess segueing back to my point about the DAM being the source of truth, I've seen a lot of false positives in the current models. I mean, extending that, and I agree, it's sort of, we almost want to create a sort of a, how do we extend, and I've got a question later around extending search capabilities using AI for DAMs, because, what we're talking about is normal vocabulary search rather than, specified vocabulary. It needs to be more natural language in terms of those things that we do, but again, understanding the audience. But what I see in some cases, and I'm not sure if this has been the case for yourselves, is that, like Chris said, he's promoting moderated metadata over AI-generated metadata, and that's one way to create the relevance, right? This metadata is more relevant than that metadata. We've just been doing a project at the moment. I was amazed at how many, there were more false positives than there were actual, and this platform was adding these willy-nilly and trying to, the amount of time we're having to demote and remove the false positives, we're really detracting from the effort of actually uploading the assets in the first place. And are you seeing the need to go through and actually put, a lens over it in terms of moderating that metadata, that AI generated metadata, or are you just dealing with it in terms of the way the search results go?
I mean, I think.
Conrad, you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think for sure that, the AI is going to be better at shunting an ingested asset to the right human rather than replacing that human. I found one AI provider that consistently put a suggestive tag on every picture of a utility pipe. I don't know why. There was some suspicion it might have looked like the barrel of a gun, but every picture of a pipe that I ran through their engine, it came up with a suggestive tag.
Right.
So I think if your concern about false positives is absolutely relevant, it's always about augmenting the human. It's not about replacing them. It's about helping the human deal with an order of magnitude more content. It's more about the assistant than it is about the replacement. I think where the replacement starts happening is with the generative AI, and that potentially replaces some roles, but the ethical minefield there is worth its own panel. So let's not get into that one.
Yeah. So to that point, we've got, Damien's working with his own modeling and his own teaching and learning, and there's time and effort to do that, right? Is there that requires planning, effort, resources, money, yada yada yada, everything needed to build your own modeling. Is there a tipping point to say, well, does investing in that, in training it, and teaching your customer that has lots of pipes and plumbing materials, to say, is it worth building out a specific machine learning engine model mechanism to train and teach it? Because it's really important that we understand a different width pipe or a different length pipe and what pipe that's used for, as compared to just pipe and suggestive. Is there a point where you can go, well, this particular use case is worth investing in our own model, and we'll just ignore the stuff that comes out of the box? What's your thoughts, Damien?
Yeah, well, I mean, with the process we're doing at the moment, it's very much about the people, and we have definitely defined this as, this is a proof of concept. This is not guaranteed that we're doing this, but we want to fund a proof of concept to actually prove that our investment in AI is going to be reliable enough, going back to false positives and stuff, that is actually worth the ongoing cost. And also, I think, to Conrad's point earlier, is also about exploring the different providers out there and making sure that we're using the right one. Because I think, our experience here with some custom stuff, particularly looking at people, is going to be far different than when we start doing more specific things like, dance choreography, pirouettes and on point, or costumes or other stuff like that. I think there's going to be a real difference we're going to see across different big players or niche players for that kind of stuff. And again, that's where we're going to have to make that assessment with the proof of concept, that the investment is actually getting the return to make it valuable. Because particularly as us, we're not for profit, so we don't have thousands and hundreds and thousands of dollars to invest in this, and we also don't have a lot of people resources too. So we're hoping that we can actually invest in some AI models and machine learning that is actually far cheaper than or far easier to budget for and stuff than actually increasing headcount in an organisation for a not-for-profit. So it's that fine balance, but yeah, it's still going to need to be some human involvement in that. So for us, it's very much proof of concept. What we're seeing with a couple of models with people at the moment is very promising, but that's using very specific face APIs. It's not using general kind of API models and that kind of stuff. So that's going to be very interesting once we kind of get to that point.
Yeah, so I guess you really need to, for your own organization, probably need to do your own proof of concept, explore a few of these different models. And as you said before, Conrad, the standard global models you can build upon, but when they get updated and those sorts of things, how do you apply for it? I mean, back to you, Chris, your idea and thought of, well, I've spent all this time and energy putting our organizational taxonomy onto this, right? Because we know what that is. Can you just go take these assets now and learn from those assets and say, well, we've applied this metadata, go and learn our metadata per se? It'd be great. What's your view on how we could potentially get to that?
Well, again, I mean, it would have to start with the piece of meat in the seat, manually tagging and having. I think the knowledge base of the human being at the desk, of knowing the context of these images in the first place, is invaluable.
But you get a certain number, you've gone through the process, you've got to a certain number,
Well,
and then you go,
so
well, actually, I've got enough now.
yeah, what's
Like,
the critical
you know,
mass?
How do I then go off and get the other 50% I haven't ingested because I haven't got to it yet? You know, what is there a probably a tipping point in terms of where that, because you need enough to train it, right?
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure what that tipping point is at the moment, but I think it could at least provide suggestions in the first place before it actually applies this to all existing assets. As people upload them, it could provide suggestions saying, is this, for instance, a picture of the engineering faculty, or is this the VC, or is this taken in such and such a building, for users to be able to confirm that as they ingest it, because people aren't encyclopedic in terms of what they can think of other people's wanting to know the content of those assets with. So yeah, I think it would have to start kind of as a partnership to start with, before it would go off on a fully automated process. Yeah.
So using AI to, I guess, help enrich that metadata on images. Say,
to complement.
You just uploaded this stuff. Hey, I've got some of this already. This kind of looks, based upon my models, I'm going to suggest this is probably the metadata associated. Obviously taking GPS locations and things, that's going off the map microservices, that's fairly easy. But so getting to a point where, because it's getting that content in and then keeping the momentum going of it, right? There's a lot of damn projects where there's a lot of energy in the first bit, and then they people leave job responsibility, whatever, but they peter off, right? And then the damn health becomes lesser and lesser, and one of the challenges is keeping that momentum and keeping those things ingested with a low barrier of entry, because as you said, people aren't all librarians, right? That's why you have librarians, right? But you've got to get the stuff in there. It'll be interesting.
People don't always want to go. The bottleneck is the upload process, because it is fairly involved to manually tag things and think of the terms which other people are going to use to search for those terms, or find out the context of those images. So any way to streamline that would be fantastic. And then eventually it will just become like a particularly with facial recognition. I think of your phone. You say find images of this person. It'll say, is this person? Is this person? And you go, yep. And it snowballs over time until it's getting more and more accurate. And there'll still be mistakes every now and then, mistakes someone's for their sister or whatever. But it will become more and more accurate. It might take more time with particular. We've got a very broad range of things which get researched and studied at the university, so it's always going to find. It's not always going to be able to detect, the particular piece of equipment which is being used in some lab. But over time, it will be able to learn. This is an engineering piece of equipment, or this is a biology piece of equipment. So based on some of the other context of those images.
Yeah. So we all think of a dam with an IA engine, but the reality is each division, department, or in faculty or whatever the case might have a different learning model or a different system that it needs to use by, right? The HR team needs faces and people and whatever. And as you said, an engineering area might need so there's a potential there for dams to support different models for different workflow streams and different departments.
That's right.
Yeah. There's a really excellent case.
That nested knowledge in between all of these business units. There's not really a lot of overlap between business or HR and microbiology. So those specialized types of knowledge that it could create would be fantastic.
Conrad?
There was a really excellent case study presented by FIFA at the Henry Stewart Dam Europe conference. I don't know whether Henry Stewart's got it on demand or anything, but it was a very focused use case. It was very specific. It was getting the images from the pitch side photographers at soccer games, football games, to the press as quickly as possible. And this is something that AI could do that humans couldn't do, because their target was 25 seconds. to get them from
Wow.
the camera pitch side
Wow.
to the press team within 25 seconds, tagged up, ready to go. So they had a combination of stuff that was from the camera. So all the metadata from the image in the camera was linked to their Wi-Fi, sent the images straight off to the AI service. It went through all of the tagging. They trained it with all of the players. So
so he knew what game was on and he
Yep.
knew what players, which is to your point, Damien, around your cast list, right? If it knows who was performing those roles on that night, then it's using that cross set of data.
But then it's also the celebrities in the crowd that they had to get the celebrity lists as well, because that, for a lot of people, that's just as important as seeing who's watching the game as who's actually on the pitch. So being able to get that within 25 seconds from the pitch side photographer through to the press team with all of the facial recognition, all of the details about where it came from, what the game was, all of that, all in and all tagged, that is something that humans couldn't achieve. So you look at specific use cases where but bear in mind that the guy presented a 5-step process for how they managed to get to that point. And number 1 was development, and steps 2 through 5 were all training. It was all training the AI models again and again and further until they got it right. So you've got to have the
catalyst was speed, right? The catalyst was speed.
Exactly.
The ability to turn it over quickly, faster than humans can do it.
Exactly. So what can the AI do that the humans cannot do, and focus on those use cases?
It'll be interesting to know in this scenario. I mean, so we don't quite need 5 seconds of speed, but we do shoot 300 to 500 photos on a dress rehearsal, and we need to turn them around within 24 hours to by opening night photography and that kind of stuff. But we have an approval process. They have to get approved by a couple of different internal stakeholders. We're also looking at things like, is the dancer pulling a funny face? Is their leg pointing in the wrong direction? Is their hand in a silly place? So from an artistic point of view, that's very important. It's interesting in I guess, this case study with FIFA. Did they care if the soccer player was falling on his face or, kicking the ball weirdly, or were they literally just feeding everything through and kind of not worrying about any kind of quality control?
Quality control, yeah.
Is it really just about enriching the data and making sure we know who's in it and, roughly what's happening, but less about the actual quality of the actual photo itself? Because for us, what we'd love is the AI to go also, that dancer, is looking, their eyes are closed. They're looking the wrong way. So cull them for us automatically, so we don't have to do it. So really, we're doing the ingest, the identification, knowing the asset is going to pass muster in the first place before we actually then even pass it to a human being to take it further. That's would be really interesting for us.
There's lots of different applications. I was involved in a safety one where they were using the DAM to work out who didn't have a hard hat on. Right? So find me all the photos that don't have a hard hat. Right.
It's very focused. That's the thing.
It's a very focused, specific thing because it's safety. It's about monitoring. It's about using the digital asset and the imagery to then result on a business outcome. And the business outcome was to find safety concerns and then notify them before it became a safety problem. Also to make sure those pictures didn't get in the media and that kind of stuff, which was a good thing as well. But look, we haven't got much time left, and we couldn't talk about AI if we didn't talk about generative and ChatGPT and all that kind of stuff. Just a conversation I've been having in the last couple of days with my colleagues is the portal and search function in a DAM going to go away? Are we going to end up with, we can use these search tools to build our own interface that will go off and look into the DAM and the data and bring back the results that, like we said before, that's contextual, that's, within the, you don't need to understand the vocabulary per se that those assets have been stored with. Do you think these technologies are going to enhance the search function? 30 seconds each.
Yeah, I think it's got a lot of potential. Again, you think of, what you think of the terms are to find a particular image would be different from what somebody else would use, depending on what their background is and their specialties. So I think it being able to learn what's already in there and be able to feed that to someone else who's using a different way of describing that. I think it's got a lot of potential. Also, we've got a lot of non-image assets as well, so we could potentially interrogate those and help feed the relevant
don't forget DAMs can store spreadsheets and Word documents just as well as they can store.
We're not using it. Yeah, we're not using it for video or audio at the moment, but again, I haven't even opened that can of worms yet on how to tag those sorts of things. So, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are doing that at the moment. And
Conrad, 30 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, AI has been used in search for longer than it's been doing for image analysis, frankly. You know, we've just reunited with the autonomy idle functionality with OpenText just buying Microfocus, and the amount of stuff that's in there on search, on security, on, you know, crowd analysis, it's enormous. I mean, I think search is, I mean, like I said earlier, I think it's more about using AI to try and work out what the right result is rather than it replacing search. I think humans are always going to say, give me something like this. And then AI is going to say, right, I found these things that look like this, or I can create you something new. And I think that's where it gets to. It's integrating the searching existing content and creating new content and integrating that within the journey. I think that's the next step.
Okay, great. Damien, anything to add?
Yeah, look, I think for me, I think something like GPT and those kind of things are very interesting because as Conrad kind of alluded to earlier, I think sometimes it's about context about what you're looking for. So being able to ask a DAM system for something you're looking for, but give it context about how you're going to use it or its purpose is going to help it present to you a better fit for what you're actually trying to achieve. And for us also, yes, we are going to be looking at using our DAM system to store a lot of non-image content, including biographies, show synopses, cast lists, and all that kind of stuff too. So also being able to use the DAM, you know, with Chat GPT and other technology like that as that digital librarian that to replace, you know, 35, you know, year veterans of the company that have, you know, moved on from the company where we don't have that knowledge with a radically younger marketing team and stuff. That would just be fantastic because it's very important to us, the history, the knowledge that walks out the door, that we sometimes don't have the historical context, but something that can interpret all the information to try and, you know, give us some semblance of the knowledge that person might have held. That's exciting.
Yeah, brilliant. No, that's great. Wonderful way to end the conversation. Thank you all so much. It's been very enlightening. Really appreciate your time. Thank you to Chris, to Damien, and to Conrad for your time today.